My life, like many of yours, is filled with lots of wonderful things to include working, writing, creating, gardening, exercising, and cooking. Yes, cooking. I'm on a mission to change the way we see, experience, and relate to food. The concept of Sankofa reminds us to go back and fetch what was essential for maintaining a quality and wholesome lifestyle and apply it to modern day practices. So, would you like to join me at the table? Hey, this is Tia Capers of My Sankofa Table coming to you live from Washington, D.C., or as some people know it, the Chocolate City. I'm standing here in front of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And over here, I'm also by the Washington Monument. And across the street, of course, is the White House. So shout out to the White House. Of course, I did not come to DC without some of my favorite goodies. They're all back at the hotel. Of course, I did Hotel Hotplate Shenanigans. I packed some of my favorite snacks. Today's program, of course, we're focusing all things health and wellness, and I had the privilege and honor to speak with Dr. Anthony Browder. I absolutely wanted to ask him some questions about health and wellness and food-related questions as it, relates to some of his travels in other countries, mainly in particular Africa. So if that's something that you're interested in, kind of listening in on some of the conversation that I had an opportunity to have with him, stay tuned, stick around, and when we come back, we'll be chopping it up briefly with Dr. Browder. Stay tuned. This is Tia Capers of My Sankofa Table coming to you live from the Sankofa Cafe and Bookstore. I'm standing here having a blue smoothie. I forgot what all is in it. I think it's blueberries, bananas, peaches, and maybe apple juice. So I'm drinking my smoothie, checking out some of the cookbooks. This part is the bookstore. Around the corner, they have the cafe. So I'm just hanging out in Washington, D.C. at the Sankofa Cafe. How ironic. Stay tuned. Welcome back to My Sankofa Table. I am your host, Tia Capers, and today I have a very special person. I have Dr. Anthony Browder. He's an author and he's well-traveled. So I know in this program we talk all things health and wellness, and today I just want to get his perspective on what other folk eat, in other countries, mainly Africa. I do want to ask you, first of all, welcome to the program. Thanks for taking a few minutes of your time to come and chat with us. And we're always curious about what happens in other countries as it relates to health and wellness and diet. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you in particular, like here we have food deserts, in some parts of our country in the United States. So when you travel to other places in Africa, do you find that, or what's your experience when you go to other places?
My experiences have been one where people have a greater respect for food.
Okay.
They have a greater respect for food because they have a greater respect for nature, and they have a greater respect for family.
Okay.
So they make it a point to have meals together.
Right.
They make it a point to have healthy meals. Mm-hmm. And in many instances, people grow their own food, or they go to market where they can get fresh food. So I don't think food deserts is an issue for them. Okay. Because much of the foods that they eat are foods that they grow or get fresh from the market, okay. Whether it's vegetables, whether it's fish, or whether it's meat. All of it is fresh. And the beautiful thing about that is most of it is free of pesticides, is free from antibiotics and other things that are part of the standard American diet, which is indeed sad and it's killing us all.
Okay. And now typically, I'm glad you said the American standard diet, or the SAD diet as I like to call it. Mm-hmm. We were always taught eat 3 times a day, and we got to have a meat, a starch, and a vegetable. Mm-hmm. So most days I eat twice a day, mm-hmm. Sometimes 3, but I don't start eating until noon. Then I go on and eat a late lunch, and that ends up being my dinner. So do you find in a lot of these African countries, do they typically stick to the 3 times a day, or are they a little bit different?
Look, the 3 meals a day thing was created by the American Dairy Association and the American beef producing companies to get you to buy their products so that they can stay in business. Okay. They don't care about your physical well-being.
Absolutely.
What you find in Africa is people have a greater concern for each other, mm-hmm. because they're primarily dealing with community. They're dealing with family. And so they have a healthier regard for the things that they put into their bodies. They have learned that your body is your temple, right. And you don't desecrate your temple by putting any and everything in it. The one negative thing I can say about food in Africa is that more Western foods are coming to America. the McDonald's,
The starchy
the Burger
stuff,
King,
the
the stuff
fast
that
food.
kills you.
Right,
you know?
right.
So in most instances, you go to Africa, you see healthy people.
Okay.
You see people who aren't obese.
Mm-hmm.
You see people who are walking. You see people who don't have, who only have a fraction of the illnesses that we have here in this country, because most of the illnesses that we have are related to diet. You are what you eat.
Right.
And if you're eating poison, if you're eating junk food,
right,
then your body will become junk.
Absolutely. And you touched on something. A lot of the food is grown locally, and I know a lot of ancient grains are found there.
Yes.
And a lot of times the ancient grains will sustain you, because I'll eat quinoa, fonio, and some of the other ones, and I find that I'm not kamut, and I'm not as hungry, teff flour, and I'm not as hungry later. So that was a good point. Mm-hmm. I also want to know, like, what are some of the spices that I guess are most memorable to you? Like, I like the Ethiopian spice, the Berber. I love that spice. I put it just about on everything.
I love the Ethiopian spices. Now, what's interesting about Ethiopia? I've been to Ethiopia 3 times.
Okay.
And the food in Ethiopia is probably the worst food I've ever had in Africa. I love Ethiopian food now.
Right.
And I say that because there are dozens of Ethiopian restaurants here in D.C.
Yes.
And I eat at them all the time. And what I realized is that the Ethiopians here season their food based to our palate.
Okay.
But
not
Ethiopian
the traditional.
Food there is different. Ooh. And it's bland.
Yeah.
But Ethiopia is a beautiful country. I spent a lot of time in Egypt, and the spices in Egypt, they're fresh. They're full of vitality.
Okay.
And that's the most important thing about your food. Foods should give you life.
Yes.
And if they don't, then you shouldn't put it in your body.
I totally agree. And with that said, I did go to Ghana in 2018, mm-hmm. and I went to the markets, and I did buy turmeric and some other spices, and they actually taste different. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, they're different.
The soil
but they were
is
better.
Different. The sunshine is different.
Absolutely.
The water is different.
Absolutely. And those are all things to consider.
Absolutely.
So I want to take a moment to thank you. I just happened to be in DC, and I'm glad that we were able to connect and have these few minutes to talk about food, of course, health and wellness. So I just want to thank you for this brief exchange between us, and I'm sure somebody will gain something from our brief exchange. So thanks again for appearing on my Sankofa table, and guys, we will see you after this break. Thank you. Welcome back to my Sankofa table. This is Tia Capers, the host of this program, and as promised, I am going to do some hotel hot plate shenanigans. Now, today I'm going to keep it kind of simple because I've been out all day, been visiting places, interviewing people, sightseeing. So in the interest of time, because it's kind of later on in the evening or in the night, I'm just going to grill. Now, this is my first time grilling on this situation with the hot plate and everything. But I found this tiny griddle grill, so griddle on the other side, it's a grill on the top. So I found this at a store not long ago because I wanted to practice it on y'all on the TV program. So tonight I'm going to grill some zucchini and squash, which I've already cut up, washed off, cut up and everything. And onions and peppers, so I already have those cut up and ready to go. And I've already cooked some pre-packaged quinoa and wild rice. So I had a package of each, and I just added in some cherry tomatoes, and I also seasoned it just a little bit. I believe the quinoa was already pre-seasoned, but I just added a little bit more to make sure it's not bland because the wild rice is not pre-seasoned. So I know in a previous episode we talked a little bit about traveling with the pre-packaged wild rice or quinoa, so this is going to come in handy. And I also have some Brussels sprouts. I had these left over at home. It was just a handful, so I've already washed and cut them up. And I'm going to just kind of saute those a little bit with some onions and peppers. So in the interest of time, I will go ahead and get started. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil, rapeseed oil that is, in my pan. I'm going to turn this down because it's already smoking and I don't want the oil to burn. And I'm going to add the onions and peppers in there. Ooh, hot, nice and hot. Okay, and the onions and peppers. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and get the grill going. So I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of the oil on the pan. I've already oiled up some of the onions and peppers, but I did not do anything to these. To the zucchini and squash, I'm going to add some seasoning that I picked up earlier at a local black-owned spice shop. I'm still here in DC, so you have to call me for the details, figure out how to get to this spice shop because I can't mention it on this program. But it was a black-owned spice shop that a friend of mine, I believe it was Patrick Oliver, so shout out to him for putting me on to this spice shop because I picked up some of that Ethiopian spice that I like, the Browder, so from that. So I'm going to season with that, and I still have a little bit of the, I think I'm going to go in with some of the Bohemian Forest spices that I like to use because it's a little bit of everything and it gives it a really nice flavor. So I'm going to give these a toss, and I'm just going to go ahead and start putting some of these on our grill. Now what I could have done was added a little bit of liquid smoke, but again, I'm in the hotel, I'm not at home, so I only have the things that I brought with me. Okay, so I'm going to start putting some of the onions and peppers on here, and go ahead and get the vegetables going. I'll space those out over time. Again, we have a tiny grill. I'm going to toss these in the rest of this oil. We're not wasting this oil and stuff. So I'm going to toss these in the oil and a little bit of the seasoning, the onions that is. And this is just some white sweet onions that I picked up. So toss those in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and season up the onions and peppers for these Brussels sprouts. So I'm going to add the Berber seasoning to that, okay? A little bit of that. I hope it's not too spicy. And I'm going to add a little bit of the onion powder because, you know, we like to layer and we like to kind of season as we go. And we also like to do it while it's in the oil. And I'm going to add a little bit of, well, a lot of it, a lot of the Italian seasoning, but that's okay. You can't go wrong with it. At least it's not too much salt. So I'm going to give that a little mix around. And I'm going to go ahead and add my Brussels sprouts to that. Now I may have to add a little bit more oil. The last one. Throw it in there. I hope the bacteria don't kill us, right? Alright, so we have those in there. Give those a mix around. I did add a little bit more oil. Alright, so we got that going. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and season up the zucchini and squash. So as I said, I'm going to put a little bit of this Bohemian Forest spice. So I'm going to add a little bit of that Berber spice to this. And a little bit of onion powder. I'm going to give that a toss in a minute. And I also want to add some parsley. So when I'm traveling, I just throw seasonings in the little Ziploc bags here. Nothing fancy, just a little, and I label it sea salt. This one's oregano. I think I have parsley under here somewhere, parsley. And when I get home, I just refill them back up. So when I'm ready to travel, all I do is just grab them up, throw them in the bag, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to add parsley, and I'm just eyeballing this, y'all. Nothing fancy, nothing too specific, and it's going to turn out fine. Just trust me on that. So I'm going to give these a little flip over and a little toss as best as I can on this tiny plate because I am operating on the desk of the hotel, but I've made it my little kitchen station, okay? Just like we do when I'm in the studio back in Charlotte. But I believe in just making a makeshift kitchen wherever you have to be, honey. Just clear off a nice space and set up your stuff. You notice here I have my utensils. Okay, so everything I need is in reach. I have my paper towels back there. I have a little dishcloth here to wipe my fingers. So I'm just giving these a little mix around so the seasoning can get on those. And then I'm going to drizzle with a little oil. Now, if you don't have grapeseed oil, of course, you can use olive oil. Okay, or whatever oil you typically use to do any grilling. Now, this is something that I do indoors quite often, especially in the summertime. I like to just grill vegetables right indoors. So I'm going to start moving these onions and peppers around just a little bit because they're already starting to grill up nicely for us. They smell amazing. Okay. You don't want them to burn. I know I got a lot on here, so you can gauge it. But because I'm in the hotel and I'm trying to hurry up because I do want to eat soon, I just threw them all on there. But I would advise to kind of space them out. Maybe not put so much, or use the full size grill. This is one of those half size, and I didn't even know they came in this size, but I was glad because now this is another option I can do when I'm traveling. I can bring my grill. Otherwise, I could have just sauteed these, just like similar to like what I'm doing with these Brussels sprouts. Okay. So to help these Brussels sprouts out a little, I have a bottle of cooking water, or water that I use for cooking. Just put a little bit in there so they're a little moist. I don't have to keep adding oil. Water is another good option, or if you have any stock, you can do that. So right now I'm just gonna add maybe a tablespoon of water. They're cooking up pretty nice. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start adding on the zucchini and squash. Now this was actually one zucchini and one squash, and this is really gonna feed 2 people or more if I needed it to. So little goes a long way. So this is another way to budget, because y'all, I'm staying in a hotel downtown DC, and this thing is so expensive. They didn't even have a refrigerator in the room. I had to ask for them to bring a refrigerator just so I could, keep my stuff cool. And the kicker is they have 2 restaurants and a bar downstairs, and the food prices are astronomical. Most of the stuff on the menu I cannot eat, or I'll compromise my diet, probably have a stomach ache or a headache. We don't want any of that. We always want options. So I said, hey, no big deal. I already brought my vegetables with me. It's just a matter of, taking a few minutes, And y'all know this program's not that long, so in a matter of minutes, we're gonna have something nice and tasty, and something we don't have to worry about, something we won't have to get sick over, something that did not break the bank, okay? Something we might even have left over, Back in the day, you had entertainers like Patti LaBelle, shout out to her, because she might be watching, or maybe not. But we had Aretha Franklin, we had, old school loved ones that they would travel with their food, and they would cook, they would cook. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, because nowadays there's so much trickery out there, and you just want to stay in control of what you put in your body so that you don't have to suffer for it later. All right. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It works for me. All right. So I did not put any sea salt on these Brussels sprouts, so I'm just going to add a little sea salt. I have a spoon over here. Maybe I'll start off with like a generous teaspoon. Okay, because we don't want them to be bland. All right. Maybe I don't even need that much. You can add to it later. I'll put the rest back in the bag. Put my spoon over here. Give these a toss again. Now to these Brussels sprouts, you can add anything you would like to add, in terms of another vegetable. If you didn't want to do the grill option, you could have easily thrown all your vegetables in here and give them a toss, let them brown up, let them cook up. You can cover these after a while when they get to your desired tenderness. They don't take long to cook either. And when I cut them, I just cut off the tops of them, then I cut them in half, and then I cut them in half again. And, some of the leaves will break apart, but it's okay. Just keep moving stuff around. All right, and believe it or not, our Brussels sprouts are kind of like an al dente, so they're pretty much done. They smell so good, y'all. Those onions and peppers in there. All right, so I can really turn these on low because we don't want them to burn. We don't want them to overcook, any of that. So I'm going to turn these all the way on low, and because we're using a cast iron skillet, it'll stay hot for a while. So it'll keep them kind of like a slow cook until till the pan cools all the way off. Now the other night, my first night here, I think I had chickpea wraps. So what I did was had leftover chickpea patties that I brought from home. Basically heated them up. I think I had some guacamole. I think I cut up some tomatoes. I had some lettuce. So I was able to, rinse all of that off here in the hotel, cut it up, put my hummus on a wrap, and, start layering like we did before in the other video. And if you haven't watched that video, go and watch it. Wraps is what I made while traveling. So, and I put the lettuce on there, put the tomatoes on there, I crumbled up the chickpea patties, which were really like my crab cakes the other night. So I crumbled that up, put it in the wrap, and I don't know what I topped it with the guacamole and a little bit of seasoning. And I was good to go. Wrapped 2 of those up and I was good to go. I'm leaving tomorrow, so I gotta cook all this up and I gotta eat all this stuff because I'm not gonna travel with it. I'm gonna make sure I eat it up, and checkout is around 11. So in the event I don't eat all of this tonight, oh, believe you me, I'll heat it up before I go, get everything all put up, packed up, and that'll be my lunch, right? So I can, and if I eat at room temperature, it's okay. But a lot of times when I travel, this is a hack, y'all. This is another thing I don't think I mentioned before. Now, because I don't typically eat from the microwave, I'll just put my food in a glass container and stick it in the dashboard, okay? When the sun's out, and believe it or not, the sun will heat it up. So that's another hack if you're traveling. But now I did tell you guys about electric lunchbox. You can plug it in your car and you can heat it up that way. So that's another option when you're traveling, okay? Now, y'all know grilling takes some time, so we're gonna take our time with this tonight. And when I come back from a break, I'm gonna fast forward and try to get some of this food, good old food, cooked up. So in a matter of minutes, I will be back to show you guys a little bit more of the progress we've made. So stay tuned. Thanks. Thank you so much for coming back, sticking around, and all that good stuff. As you can see, I have grilled up a nice plate of zucchini and squash. Okay, so we had to kind of fast forward a little bit because I do have to be mindful of the timing. And I'm gonna go ahead and add the onions and peppers back to the grill since it's still hot. And let those finish off while I continue to talk to you guys. And we already have our Brussels sprouts ready. And our prepackaged quinoa and wild rice is already ready. So after these onions and peppers heat up a bit, I will be ready to plate up a nice plate of healthy, fresh, vegan food that I prepared. I know what's in it. Believe it or not, I tried to go to an Ethiopian restaurant. I'm not going to call them out, but I'm going to call them out without calling them out. And I know it was about closing time. Okay, I was mindful of the time, but I had about 10 minutes, before closing. So I'm standing outside. This is here in DC, in the downtown area. I'm standing outside, reading the menu, trying to pick and choose what I can eat, what I can't eat, whatever. And the lady that works there, she just came and politely flipped the close sign on the door and locked the door. And just kind of grinned, and I was like, "Wow!" So that was not too welcoming. But hey, I didn't worry about it because I got it covered. I got my stuff here that I put in my refrigerator that I brought from home, already washed off. Okay, to make it a little bit easy for us, I put it in the refrigerator that I ordered up from downstairs at the front desk, and I just came and put some stuff together. So it was no big deal. But yeah, I was trying to give myself a little break because I had just gotten to town and wanted to try out some of the local, eateries, and I just happenstance on that one, but it didn't work out, but it's okay. And I do want to say that this is not for everybody, okay? And it's okay. But for me, this is how I do, and I'm just sharing it with you guys so you won't be so intimidated, okay, or feel intimidated. I basically packed this Hotplate, the same one I used in the studio. It has 2 burners on it. If you're in the market, look around. Look around online, look around in your local stores, find you something you think you can work with, and start planning out, if this is something, that you're interested in doing. Because again, I treat my vegan lifestyle as a lifestyle. So I'm always thinking about what I'm going to eat, why I don't want to get sick, cramp my whole trip because now I got a stomach ache because I've eaten something that I'm not typically used to eating. So this is just one thing that I do. I do plan ahead by looking up restaurants and looking at their menu. So already when I get to the restaurant, I have an idea about, what they have, what I can and cannot eat. And again, I never fret because I always have this in my back pocket. And in most cases it's in my front pocket because this is just what I do. And it's no big deal. I enjoy cooking, Sometimes I do want a break, but I enjoy cooking. And this is not that much of a hassle for me. Okay? So, and like I said, back in the day, this is how people traveled. They weren't always able to stay at certain hotels, go to certain restaurants, way back in the day when things were segregated, you know. So this is what people had to do. This was a way of life anyway, whether you were cooking meat, vegetables, or whatever you were cooking. Ask Patty LaBelle. She'll tell you how she, and probably still do cook in her room. I don't know. But I know that, you know, that's a great option. And as you know, we're thinking about health and wellness, we always want to have options. We always want to have healthy options. I woke up the last couple of mornings and I'm smelling cigarettes coming through the vents. And I'm just thinking, I don't want to breathe that in. But tonight, they're going to be smelling my food going through their vents if they're still over there. So, and I almost went and told on them about the cigarette because that's just not a pleasant smell to wake up to. But I digress. All right, so the onions and peppers are just about ready. They're browning a little bit more. I'm going to turn this off because this thing is piping hot. And it'll continue to kind of cook them slow as I plate my food. And again, we already have our prepackaged quinoa and wild rice over here. Now, this was not a mixture. This was a mixture I put together. 1 pack of quinoa, 1 pack of wild rice, a couple of tablespoons of water, seasoned it up, added some cherry tomatoes to that just for color. You know, we're eating with our eyes still. So I added that. So I have the Brussels sprouts, I have the grilled vegetables, squash and zucchini here. I have the onions and peppers there. As we're coming to the close of our program, I do want to take a minute to give a special thanks to a few people, okay? I really want to thank Miss Lauren Love for helping me to put all this together. Okay, it's always people helping us out along the way, working in the background, making things happen. I really want to share this episode with you guys to show you how I put together my hotel Hotplate Shenanigans. Okay, so this is a prime opportunity since we've recently aired that program. I also want to thank Dr. Anthony Browder for taking a few minutes of his busy schedule to carve out time to share with us, you know, share with my program, my Sankofa table, you know, just a little bit about how other people view food and experience food, you know, in their cultures in other countries, in particular Africa. And I also want to thank Theatri Green, also known as TX Green, for helping to direct this program for us today, because without the director, I wouldn't be able to make it happen, okay? I'm just a producer and the host, okay, and the cook. I wear other hats, but directing is not my forte. Not yet, anyway. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a quick episode, and this was kind of put together, but again, this is a great experience, a great takeaway to remind you guys that you always have options, okay? So thanks for sticking in there with me. We will see you in the next program, and stay well and stay healthy. Also, don't forget to tune in every second and fourth Saturday of the month, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, you know, we hope to see you at the table. Bye.